Welcome to School to Homeschool. My name is Janae Daniels. I am a wife, a mother of 6, and a former middle school teacher turned homeschool mom. Now, are you thinking about leaving the school system, but you are scared to death and afraid you're going to screw your kids up? I felt the same way, and you have come to the right place. My aim is to help you leave the system so that you can take the hearts and minds of your children back. I was scared too. You don't have to be scared. So welcome to School to Homeschool. Now, for those of you that are brand new to homeschooling, my first few episodes of the School to Homeschool podcast go over in detail overcoming some of your fears, navigating laws, and all those good things. We talk about deschooling, and I've got some more videos coming up soon that will be posted on my website as well as YouTube to help you in that initial transitional phase. For those of you that have been with me for a long time or even a short time, welcome back. I'm excited to have you, and I'm excited to talk about today's subject, which is the bane of all of our existences, if we're going to be completely honest. But one that a young mom messaged me and asked if I could talk about this subject on the podcast. And so here I am, ready to talk about it because I think it's an important one. And at the same time, I was, again, recently on Facebook. I did not get in an argument this time. I'm really restraining myself from getting in social media fights. I have a very big personality, if you couldn't tell. And I'm restraining myself from getting in Facebook fights. But a lady on a local Facebook page of mine in Colorado Springs, which is where I'm located, here in my little home office. Welcome to my home. Posted that she doesn't want her children to ever struggle. So she will always do everything for them. She's a young mom. She doesn't make them do chores. She doesn't make them really do anything. Whatever they want, she gives. And she called herself a gentle parent. Yeah, she does the gentle parenting, which as a mom of an almost 26-year-old all the way down to an 8-year-old and everything in between, and very different personality styles, and we've dealt with some tough mental issues and all these different things. I look at that young mom, and I did make the comment, I'm like, wow, you are not doing your kids any justice. And she's like, anyway, so she was fighting a lot of people on Facebook. Why she would post that, I don't know. Maybe she wanted to validate her life. But I thought, what a way to wreck your kids and make them spoiled, rotten brats and horrible people to be in society than giving them everything and not ever letting your kids struggle, not even with chores. And man, did she defend her position against all the people that came up against her. And I mean, good for her for defending herself. But at the same time, as an older mom and somebody who's been around the block now a few times, I see a disaster for that poor mom in the next few years, particularly when she said she didn't want her children to have to do chores, that she would do that for them. I mean, she's about to create a bunch of monsters is what she's about to create. Don't you love how judgmental I am? Look, I just drank a Celsius, which is a lot of caffeine, and I'll tell you, I'm on one right this second. So today I do want to talk about chores because, like I said, a young mom did reach out to me, not the same one from Facebook, and said, at what age do we start doing chores, and should we have kids do chores? And the answer is yes, absolutely. Now, one thing that I get criticized often about with being an eclectic unschooler, though I do eclectic, meaning I pull from multiple philosophies and ideologies, and sometimes I do have my kids do curriculum. Predominantly, we are unschoolers, meaning that we are child-led learners. My kids have to read, write, and know how to do math up to a certain point. I don't care if they do calculus. I don't care if they do algebra 2. I have a 12-year-old in geometry right now, and he's zipping right through it because he wants to be, and he loves figuring out the perimeter of circles. But again, I'm an eclectic unschooler, and the argument I often get from people is, well, you have to learn how to do things that you don't like to do, right? I agree with that. There are times in our lives that there are things that we don't want to do that we need to do. I don't like having to take care of taxes, but I have to take care of taxes, right? And so I get that argument from people going, well, if you unschool your children, then they will never, ever learn to do things that they don't like to do. And my argument is, well, no, I still have my kids do things they don't like to do. Case in point, chores. They don't like to do their chores, but they do them. And we're part of a society that has responsibilities. And so, though I don't make them do other things, right? If they don't want to take a physics class, I'm not going to make them take a physics class, especially if I know that particular child is never, they're even introducing the sciences and they're like, yeah, thanks, I'm good. I would much rather do art, right? I know my kids' personalities and I know they're inclined to certain things, but I'm not going to make them take certain classes that they don't want to take. They will get plenty of that in their lives. I will make them do chores. So there's other things that I do expect my kids, things that I expect my kids to do. And so chores being one of those things. So there's my argument back to those of y'all who are saying your kids are not going to learn how to live in society if they're not forced to take all these stupid subjects that they'll never use, that will never go into long-term memory ever. And then it doesn't really matter that they learned it in the first place because it never stuck, right? Yes, my kids are expected to do chores. And this has been an ongoing battle. Now, my kids are really good about generally not fighting me on the chores. They will fight each other, but they generally don't fight me anymore. Because one of the discussions that we've had is that we are all part of a family. We all have responsibilities and expectations, and to be part of our family, we help. And by the way, I don't pay my kids for their chore list. We're about to switch how we do the chores. I was alternating every day, and the masses came to me and to my husband and complained and said, we would like to have the same chore all week and then switch, because there was some argument about one child doing the dishes in the morning, and then they were in charge of the dishes all day, and then that night they didn't do the dishes, and the next day the person got a whole lot of dishes, and the chore wasn't done the day before. So we came together as a family, discussed it, and we are going to be doing weekly chores as opposed to switching every day, which is what we have been doing. And then there's certain chores that the child gets just until they hit a new age, and then they get out of that chore once the next child comes up. I'm talking about mowing the lawn. That's Jacob's responsibility now. Joshua has now passed it on to him, with Jason and I telling them it's time. You can now pass on mowing the lawn. And Jacob now, as a 12-year-old, is in charge of mowing the lawn on Saturday morning. Kara, now Jacob has passed on the dog poop picking up, and Kara is responsible for the dog poop. Now, we do have chores that, like, above and beyond. Kara wanted to earn some extra money. Like I said, I don't pay my kids for chores. Like, we're not the government. We don't give out handouts in my family. But Kara said, Mom, is there some extra work that I could do? Jacob and Kara will come and say, is there extra work that I could do to earn some money? And then I will give things above and beyond what they're expected to do on their list to get done. And generally I try, knock on wood, I try to have them do their chores in the mornings as much as possible. Some chores take all day. Like, let's be honest, sweeping and vacuuming the floor, like our hardwood, we have hardwoods on our main floor, has become the bane of everyone's existence, because somehow, and I don't know how, half of the food and crumbs end up on the floor throughout the whole day. So someone is in charge of that, and that one's a constant battle. So let's talk about, we're going to talk about the best age to start chores, what some of the age appropriate chores are. Obviously, a 3-year-old is not going to be, cleaning toilets. But before we get into that, I want to talk about the actual research out there with chores. And this is to combat Facebook mom who wants to cause havoc for the rest of our society by raising entitled, spoiled, rotten little brats. Did I just say that out loud? Yes, I did. She doesn't listen to my podcast anyway, so she'll never know. And I don't even know her name anyway. It wasn't anonymous either. Okay. Okay, so this is the coolest thing, is that the longest running study that has been done is a multi-generational Harvard study. So listen to this. This is from, I think it's Inc. magazine. Anyway, I will put the links to all of these articles below. Yeah, this is Inc.com. This is from the article, want to raise more successful and happier kids. Harvard research says, give them more chores. Turns out, quote, okay, is there actually a way to help your kids be more successful? Turns out there is. And by the way, he defines successful. Let me start back. It says, after all, quote, after all, feeling successful in whatever way you choose to define success, because it is a choice, is a key factor in overall happiness and fulfillment. But is there a way to actually help your kids be more successful? And then he goes on to say, turns out there is. As part of an 85 years and counting multi-generational Harvard study, researchers evaluated the backgrounds of over 700 high achievers and found a strong connection between doing household chores and later professional success. Isn't that interesting? He goes on, makes sense. Kids who feel involved in shared responsibilities and who feel a part of a larger ecosystem derive a greater sense of self-worth. They also become able to see the needs of people around them and therefore more willing to help others. In short, they become less self-centered. If you do everything for me and I don't have to participate, clearly the world must revolve around me, and it doesn't. And they develop a better work ethic. My work ethic was definitely not innate. My parents, although I didn't like it at the time, actively developed it. All those, and I continue to quote just a little bit longer here, all those lead to better chances of career success, teamwork, empathy, work ethic, the willingness not just to lead, but also follow. And then there's this: kids who do chores are more likely to be happier as adults. And then he quotes another study published in the Journal of Developmental and Behavioral Pediatrics found that children who start helping with small tasks by the time that they're 4 or 5 have higher levels of self-confidence and self-efficacy. Compared with children who regularly perform chores, children who rarely performed chores had greater odds of scoring in the bottom quintile on self-reported pro-social, academic ability, peer relationship, and life satisfaction scores. The frequency of chores in kindergarten was positively associated with the child's perception of social, academic, and life satisfaction competencies in the 3rd grade, independent of sex, family, income, and parent education. There you have it, my friends. When our children do chores, number one, it helps them become more successful later on in life, right? Who knew? Who'd have thunk that sweeping the floor or doing the dishes would help you be more successful in life? But it does. What intrigued me about that study is also they found a correlation with higher and greater happiness in those children throughout their lives and as adults. Fascinating to me. This is from the Boston Globe. They say, this is Ami Albanese of the Boston Globe, a Globe correspondent. This is an old study. But it says, by at least some accounts, tasks like doing the laundry or cleaning up after dinner have fallen off kids' to-do lists. In Braun Research poll of 1,001 parents last year commissioned by Whirlpool, the appliance manufacturer, and this is from 2015, so just 28% said they regularly assign chores to their kids, even though 82% said they themselves grew up doing chores. It isn't hard to imagine the reasons for this shift. Tightly packed schedules can leave children little time for housework, which, unlike calculus assignments or soccer practice, probably won't influence college admissions decisions. Some parents may want to spare their children the drudgery they endured. Others find that nagging kids to do their chores is more of a burden than they bargained for. And yet I just read to you that the Harvard study that there is a higher correlation in success as adults and a higher happiness rate when children do chores. Now, I think this is interesting as he talks about like having jam-packed schedules. Now, I've talked about this in previous episodes. Like I went from being a super jam-packed public school mom where my kids were doing soccer and baseball and softball and t-ball and basketball and all the balls and dance and gymnastics and they were going to public school and they were doing youth group at church and scouts and all of the things. And now I've way pulled back, which even today, my husband's like, we should do even less. But I'm like, they actually don't have that many things, right? They have their enrichment program. Kara goes to 2. And then they have youth group and they have lessons. And usually the lessons that I do are seasonal and they don't have a lot more extra things. They don't. I just did sign Katie up for an art class because she requested it. That will run for 1 month. And it's an adult art class. But I think one of the tendencies as moms is we try to way overbook our kids when really we and our children need more white space mentally. All right, we've got to have time for boredom. By the way, boredom breeds brilliance. They need to have time to get bored. They need to have time to play, and they need to have time to do their chores. The other thing is, as moms and grandparents and dads, we shouldn't wear ourselves ragged doing all of the things for our kids. Somebody asked me how I do it all, which it kind of made me laugh because I do take a lot of white space throughout my days. I mentally have to take white space. And I usually try to take a brief afternoon nap because otherwise physically I'm not in a good place with my body, right? I'm dealing with some health issues right now. And I need that. I need that little, 30-minute nap in the afternoons. One of the things which when I've been asked that, I'm like, I don't do everything all the time. Kara, who is 8 right now, is learning to do her laundry. We're still working on a few things. We've had some discussions about not putting whites in with darks because it changes the color, right? And she's learning that, but she's capable of learning and she wants to learn how to do it. She wants to be big. Side note, when I was in college, I knew a guy who perpetually, like it was my freshman year, had dingy clothes. His clothes were always dingy. Always. And somebody asked him about it and they're like, your clothes, I don't mean to be rude, but your clothes are always dingy and they smell bad. Are you doing your laundry? And he's like, I do my laundry every single week. And finally, the friend that asked said, can I see what you're doing your laundry with? Because I'm like, as your friend, I just want to tell you, you smell bad. And he's like, I shower every day and I do my laundry every week. And so what ended up happening is when we looked, he had been using laundry fabric softener instead of laundry detergent. And he thought that fabric softener and laundry detergent were the same thing because his parents had never, ever showed him how to do their laundry. His mom had always done it for him. So adulting, he hadn't learned to completely adult. So then my friend and I showed him how to use laundry detergent and explained the differences between laundry detergent and fabric softener. Unfortunately, his clothes were still dingy, but they smelled better, right? So now I have, Jacob, my kids all know how to do their laundry. They do it. Sometimes I'll help Kara because, again, like we're in the process of learning, but they need that responsibility. There are things that they need to learn now so that when they are out of our house, they can do those things. My kids help cook. Jacob is the one who helps the most. He loves to cook. Yesterday, he put off doing his reading, writing, and math so that he could make lighthouse cookies. He Googled the recipe, and those are the cookies you get from the grocery store that are they're like sugar cookies, but they're really thick and they're like really soft. And then they have that coat of frosting on top that's like usually bright blue or bright pink. And he wanted to make those. So I let him, but first he had to do his chores. And then he had to clean up after himself because by golly, I'm not going to do it for him. He is learning now as a 12-year-old how to cook and how to clean and how to do all those things. And that's important for me because I want him to be a clean adult who knows how to physically take care of himself, right? Okay, going on with this article. Having to fit in chores can also help kids learn to manage their time. While it can be tempting to give kids a pass on busy homework nights, this is, they're quoting a psychologist, Julie Lythcock-Hames. Real life is going to require them to do a lot of these things. When they're at a job, there might be times that they have to work late, but they still have to go grocery shopping and do the dishes. So research over the years makes a strong case for chores. A University of Minnesota analysis of data collected over a 20-year period found that the best predictor of success in young adulthood on measures related to education completion, career path, and personal relationships was whether they had begun doing chores at an early age, as young as 3 or 4. And then he goes on, and this article also quotes the Harvard study as well. So what do we learn? Our kids need to start doing chores, my friends. If your kids are not doing it with chores or helping with chores, it's time to help. It's time to get them to start. Now, what age should kids start to do chores? Have you ever noticed that small children really love to be helpers? They love, especially when they get to be 2 and 3 and they want to get themselves dressed and they want to help, right? That's when we start doing chores with them, is when they're really little, when they're 2 or 3. In some cultures, they start chores like this is from the best age for kids to start doing chores. Don't cheat your children. Give them work to do around the house. This was posted in 2022. This is Susan Newman, PhD from Psychology Today. And she says, as in Mayan families, starting chores young carries the most benefits for children. And then they quote University of Minnesota as well, but Marty Rossman, Emeritus Associate Professional Family Education, determined that the best predictor of young adult success in their 20s was if they participated in household tasks as early as 3 or 4. And so in some cultures, they start chores. This also talks about like in indigenous community. Indigenous community in Mexico. I can't say that word, my friends, where kids as young as 1 assist at home and by the age of 6 to 8 initiate helping activities. So some cultures do it really, really early. If we can start our kids as early as 2 or 3 helping out, maybe it's they put the toilet paper in the toilet paper holder. Maybe it's they help take out the dishes or some of the dishes. Maybe it's we have them put their dish in the dishwasher after they finish eating, right? Their little plastic dishes, like they are capable of doing that. Not only are they capable, but they want to. And so if we can teach them early on to want to help, like capitalize on their desire at that age, that's the best age to start doing chores. And we give them simple things. Okay, we're going to pick up the toys. Your job is to pick up this toy and put it in the basket. Anytime the room gets messy, we're going to pick up the toys. At the really young ages, we're going to help, right? Sometimes they get very, very overwhelmed. I remember hearing a story about a little child who the dad kept saying, go clean your room. And they were like 5 or 6. And their room was a pigsty and had way too much stuff in the room. The room was a pigsty. And the dad went in and the little girl was just sobbing. And she said, Daddy, I just can't do it. It's just too hard. And for that child, this job was just overwhelming. It was way too much for them. And so the dad realized that and went about helping his little girl, picking up things and straightening up. Right. One of the things that I'm perpetually doing in my life is decluttering. My sister was like, "You're so organized," and then she came to my house, and I'm like, "Oh," she's like, "Oh," and she's way more organized than me. And she's like, "Oh," and I'm like, I told you you are more organized. You think I've got it all together, and I really don't have everything together all the time." And so I'm perpetually decluttering and trying. Like I said, I've said this many times. In my heart, I'm a minimalist. In practice, I'm totally not a minimalist. But that's something that we're perpetually doing. And just the other day, my girls and I went through all of their clothes. We got rid of all the stuff that was too small or stained, or that they just didn't wear anymore, and kept only the things that they did wear. And Kara, my 8-year-old, said, "Oh, this is so much easier there's less to put in my laundry basket." And now she's carrying down her laundry basket and she helps me put it in. And we're still working on, okay, now you put the laundry detergent in, not the fabric softener, put the laundry detergent in. And now I always pour in, into every load, I pour in vinegar because it takes smells out of the clothes without smelling like vinegar. Just don't put too much in, especially teenage boys. Side note, vinegar in the wash for teenage boys' clothes helps take the nasty smell of teenageness out of their clothes. Anyway, so those are things that they can do. And the less stuff that we have, the easier the chores are. The less toys that they have, the easier it is. So we're perpetually getting rid of toys and all the stuff they get for their birthdays and overtime breaks. And, we're decluttering because the less that we have, the easier it is for them to clean up. So, my point of today's podcast, yes, have them start doing chores. As parents, it is easier if we do it at the beginning. But the reality is, now that I have teenagers, they've become a great help to me. And are they going to squawk? Yes, your children are going to squawk. Why? Because they're kids and nobody wants to clean the bathroom and nobody wants to sweep and nobody wants to do the dishes. But we have to remind them we are part of a family. And remember that in the long run, it is a benefit to them when they are helping and when they are working. And so that's part of our homeschool is, you're going to have to help with chores and you're going to do chores. And it's going to bless your life and everybody else's. Again, now that my kids are teenagers, it's taken a great burden off of me because they know how to do some of the harder chores and I don't have to do everything all the time. They get to help. They help with the dishes. They help mow the lawn and weed, and they help edge the lawn, and they sweep and they vacuum and they have to pick up and they have to do these things. And they're going to be better people for it. So there we are. Start chores early and give age appropriate chores. I didn't say that. As they get older, give them more responsibility. They are capable. They're capable of doing more. Now that Joshua drives, one of his responsibility is that he has to be the taxi for a couple of his siblings when they have to go to their tennis lessons. I started my kids doing tennis lessons because I heard that racket sports help with not getting dementia. And guess what? It's in my family background. So I'm like, you will play a racket sport. My friends, you're going to play it. And so Joshua is the one who takes them and picks them up from tennis most of the time. That's one of his responsibilities now. And he knows it, So as they get older, give them more to do, give them more responsibilities. It is a blessing for them. I hope that we don't want to be like that poor mom who has right now little kids that she wants to enable for the rest of their lives. Again, I want my kids to be a blessing to society and not a curse. I want them to contribute in positive ways, not detract. we can help them become better people by giving them chores, holding them accountable for as much as it stinks for us, holding them accountable and helping them become the adults that they are meant to become. With that, my friends, you are doing better than you think you are. I hope you know that. You got this. We'll talk next week. If you enjoyed this today, please like and subscribe. You could also join our private Facebook group at School to Homeschool or sign up for our newsletter at www.schooltohomeschool. Have a great day.